Let's talk.
Oedipus.
King of Thebes.
Killed his dad.
Fucked his mom.
Had babies.
Angered the gods.
Gouged out his eyes.
And was doomed to a life of wandering.
Happy times. But today, we'll focus on what makes Oedipus, Oedipus Rex. The need to know on understanding just what is going on in this play.
Now, scholars have written entire books, theses, dedicated their lives to the study of Oedipus Rex.
We have 10 minutes and a lot to cover.
Let's hit it.
First question. Who wrote this? When did he write it? Why?
Sophocles, the most celebrated Athenian dramatist of all time. Born in Colonus, died in Athens. He lived to be 90.
That is if you believe Greek historians. He wrote 120 plays, of which only 7 survived. This play being one of them.
They were written during a philosophical upheaval occurring in the classical era of Greek history, around 500-something BC, where the religious beliefs that the gods were in control of everything declined.
This made the way for more rational thinking and made it easier to question the natural world.
The reason was due to Athens constantly being at war. What wars? I'm glad you asked.
Nobody asked.
I don't care. Be quiet. The Greeks had just finished battling the invading Persians in the oh-so-creatively named Persian Wars. This is what actually united Greece as one nation, as opposed to several city-states in close proximity to each other. Just a few years after that, David.
I thought you didn't want me to speak.
Look, can you just... Okay.
Peloponnesian.
Peloponnesian War. The Peloponnesian War. This is basically just what we call the wars between Athens and Sparta, because they happened in Peloponnesia. Historians should really be more creative. Anyway, all this fighting caused people to realize that mortals influenced their own destinies, driven by their own ideals, and not the gods. Kinda hard to believe in gods when it was people who were dictating what would happen next. These were very new ideas, but more on that later.
He wrote this play for the Dionysian Festival of Athens, held 4 times a year outside the Acropolis. The festival was meant to honor Dionysus, god of wine, theater, and debauchery, by having people from all over Greece flood into Athens to drink, see theater, and, well, debauch. Imagine an entire audience of drunk, horny, hopped-up Athenians partying, ready to watch some plays.
Kinda like theater school.
Yes. Dramatists from all around would also compete to see whose tragic play would be the most well-liked by the audience. The winner would win a crown of ivy. Yeah, we were surprised too. I mean, the producer would at least get a plaque for his work. Anyway, to set up some context and to show the extent of Sophocles' success, he won 24 times at the festival in Athens, with Oedipus Rex considered his most perfect tragic play. Yep, that's 24 Ivy crowns just for him. Now, the reason he was so well liked wasn't just because he was a skilled tragic writer. However, it's interesting to consider that his most famous Theban trilogy isn't actually a trilogy. He wrote Antigone first, then Oedipus Rex, and then Oedipus at Colonus, to bridge the two. And they were all submitted to different festivals. In fact, there's a ton of inconsistencies between the 3 plays, but we don't have time to cover that.
It's also important to note that Oedipus Rex was not staged like your regular old Greek play.
It had 3 actors and a chorus on stage at a time instead of the traditional 2 actors. He was also the first to include an actual set. That kind of became a thing.
Oedipus Rex was unique in that it told the story basically in reverse. Telling events out of chronological order also provides opportunity for Sophocles' celebrated use of irony.
There is an interesting discrepancy between the larger picture that the spectators see and the small piece that is visible to the character who is immersed in the stream of events.
Now, Sophocles didn't actually invent the story of Oedipus. At that time, everyone knew it.
Strange, eh? But think about it this way. When Titanic first came out, nobody went in thinking, I wonder how this will end.
No, people didn't go to the theater for the story. They went because it publicly explored ethical and political controversies and would reflect on the most urgent issues of the times.
Not to mention it was encouraged to get hammered at the same time.
In any case, the prevailing conflict between old ideas and new ideas were all the rage.
Think of Jocasta. She thought she was in control of her own destiny by poo-pooing Apollo's prophecies, but when she needs him, she is willing to perform rituals of worship to ask for his favor by offering up incense and garlands.
Also, it can be reflected through Oedipus's free-thinkingness. Is that even a word?
Yeah, it's fine. Just
and Creon's religiousness.
Just
Really? No, that's not... Okay, you know what? No, you know what? This is the last time I'm letting you write anything.
Speaking of things you don't understand, pop quiz, Sphinx. What?
Crazy, temperamental, part cat, part bird, part people thing, and had a thing for riddles. It sat outside the only gate to Thebes to ask people who wanted in or out of the city questions, and would murder or eat or disembowel those who could not answer her riddles. Real problem is that cities in ancient Greece depended on trade to survive, and since Thebes is surrounded by walls with only one way in, trading doesn't do so well when your caravans are being nommed on. Eyes. Why?
It's important to know that at the time, the Greeks were heavy on the whole honor thing. If you messed up, you had to own up to it. And what Oedipus did was so bad that death was too good for him, and exile was much worse than death. Due to his recent ocular impairment, wandering around would have been a much more painful and much more justifiable fate. Plus, this meant that he had lost all rights to burial, meaning he would forever be a blind wanderer. Tiresias, who?
Tiresias was a prophet. He was given the power to see into the future, either with trippy dreams and visions or by interpreting the songs of birds. Not to be mistaken with an oracle who just chatted with Apollo about the future every once in a while. Prophecy. Huh?
Prophecies are a tricky business. They come from Apollo, but he gets his information from his dad Zeus, who gets it by peeking on what the Fates are up to. Yep, Fates. These lovely ladies. Ugh. Or Clotho, the weaver of fate, Laetius, I guess, the measure of fate, and Atropos. Atrops, that's the one, the cutter of fate. They are the only ones who could see how a mortal's life would proceed and end. Zeus had no power over them and could only see portions of the thread being spun. He would then tell Apollo, and like a bad game of cosmic broken telephone, Apollo would tell one of his trusted oracles of Delphi to communicate for him to other mortals. The lesson learned from Oedipus is that fate cannot be outrun. It is predetermined and will catch up with you. A fitting tale told with old traditions and new ideological views.
This was a lot of information. We know. But like we said, scholars have devoted their lives to study this play. We hope this helped you at least a little bit to understand where it comes from. If it didn't help...
Talk to your local oracle, I guess.